Saturday. Peace and blessings to everyone. This is March the 16th, and you are here with me, Demira Perspectives. Welcome, welcome. Listen, I do not have a guest with me today, but I will continue to have our discussion about conflict and how conflict can help us to grow. Today, I want to spend some time talking about internal conflict. So, if you are new to Perspectives, what we do is we have a topic, and then I present the definition, and we go deeper into that topic, and then sometimes I will have guests on to also discuss that topic. So, all right, I want to read a couple of things to you concerning conflict. Conflict is a serious disagreement and argument. If two people or groups are in conflict, they have had a serious disagreement and have not yet reached agreement. Conflict is often viewed as something negative that can disrupt the smooth operation of a business. However, not all conflict is destructive, and organizational leaders can use it to develop creative solutions for clients. In fact, conflict can often lead to better outcomes and more innovative ideas. Perhaps the number one reason why conflict is healthy for relationships is that conflict signals a need for change for both parties. Conflict provides an opportunity for making change if both partners are up for it. Conflict can give you a chance to work on the problems in your relationship. Fortunately, not all conflict is negative. Positive conflict can improve problem solving, clarify issues, increase participant involvement and commitment, and result in a better decision or outcome. So I said that I was going to be talking about internal conflict on today. Internal conflict might be opposing or competing wants. So what I wrote down concerning internal conflict is when our thoughts and our emotions try to override what is known, what we know is morally right or wrong. So our internal conflict is when we're at battle with ourselves, when we are conflicted within ourselves. It may be because something that we were taught and then we learned later on that that wasn't the truth. It may be because of some lies that have been presented to us, such as if you grow up in a household where you're told that you're loved, but you're not treated like you're loved. That creates an internal conflict. If you have internal conflicts about who you are, if you have self-esteem issues, that is an internal conflict. So it says that internal conflicts might be opposing or competing wants, needs, or desires, confusion about how to feel, questioning beliefs or values, suffering from indecisiveness, insecurity, self-doubt, or another emotion that puts the character at odds with themselves, conflicting duties and responsibilities, and grappling with an aspect of mental health. Internal conflict can be viewed as a mental health issue, but it's not always, right? And so today I titled this "How to Learn from Your Conflicts." And the only way that we can learn from our conflicts is to deal with them. Now, I know that at one point in time, and I don't think that this is the case now, but at one point in time, it was taboo to have a therapist or to go to therapy, or to even talk about your issues, or your battles that you were facing internally, right? At one point in time along the lines in our history, we were taught to keep things to ourselves. Some of us were raised in homes that we were told what happens at home stays at home. Don't you go out there and tell our business out in the streets, right? So we have been conditioned to keep things in, to keep things locked up, to keep things within ourselves, which creates a bigger internal conflict, because now you have all of these battles going on. You have all of these decisions. You have all of these things, all of this confusion within you that you have been conditioned that you need to keep it in you. And we know with anything, if we keep things bottled up, if whether it's a drink that's expired, if you keep it bottled up, when you finally open it, it's going to explode. Whether it's a soda that you shake up, when you open it, it's going to explode. Whether it's a volcano that hasn't erupted in a long time, eventually it's going to erupt. So when we keep things suppressed, it has to find a place to go. It has to be released somewhere, some way, somehow. So then we find ourselves having physical conflicts, because that internal conflict has to have a place to be released. So then it becomes released within our health. That's why people have heart attacks, strokes. Now we know that our eating habits, we know that all of our other habits combined there's always cause and effect. So it can lead to us having health issues. But there's a scripture that says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." So if we're dealing with internal conflict, it is only natural that it's going to manifest externally. That's why we have some people who have habits. They have formulated habits that we would deem as bad habits because they're coping mechanisms. These are terms that we hear all the time now. We have trauma. Trauma is internal conflict, because something that has happened to us has caused us to have a response. And our response is always predicated on the experience that we had. And so we have to have a way of escape. We have to have a place to release, right? And so going back to how we've been conditioned to keep things to ourselves. So we've had two extremes that have occurred. We were taught that we better keep this to ourselves. You better. And so my generation we did not want to teach our children to suppress their emotions. We were also taught that when we were in the room, like if nobody was talking to us, then you just there. You're invisible. Nobody's speaking to you. You don't have a voice here, right? So my generation, in our attempt to not be so controlling about our children's voices, I personally believe that some have given too much of a voice. Now, there's always a balance. There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. When we are dealing with something from one extreme to the other, we're always going to go all the way to the other extreme before we find our balance. Your balance and my balance may not look the same, but there has to be a balance. Have you ever seen someone who you can tell when someone is not used to having a voice, when someone is battling with control, right? Because we truly don't have control over anything except our responses, right? But we tend to think that we can control our square. So you'll see someone who is in a battle of control because they don't have control anywhere else. So when they finally get an opportunity to have a voice, they misuse it. They monopolize that opportunity for their voice, right? So now you have people that are going from one extreme of not having a voice, not having control, to having all the voice and no one else gets a say, and having all of the control. And that is manipulation. And that's how you form these relationships, these trauma bonding relationships. Now, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not claiming to be a therapist, right? I'm just sharing with you from my personal experiences, because I am one that's come from feeling like I didn't have a voice, feeling like I was being controlled. Anytime I even tried to share my voice, it was conflicting because I was told I was wrong. Now, when it comes to your personal opinions and your personal beliefs, truth is truth. But when we're talking about opinions, you have the right to have your opinion. And you really have the right to believe in whatever you want to believe. Right? So, but when you're used to someone always opposing you, it creates an internal conflict. So when I was coming out of that mindset, it was an extreme battle. The conflict, I was fighting myself all the time just to make the simplest of decisions. But when we don't deal with it, what happens is we allow it to grow. So let's say you come from a controlling household. You were raised in a controlling household. And then you don't realize that that's what you're coming from. And then you go off into the world as an adult and you don't deal with it. Even once you start to question some things, you start to have some doubt about some things, you start to realize that you are struggling extremely with your own identity, and then you begin to question, where did this come from and how do I deal with this, right? If you don't know how to deal with it and you've been trying to deal with it for 20 odd years, then the next step would likely be you need some help with this. Because we can't change our own thought process. We need help. We need to be exposed. That's what perspectives is all about. We need to be exposed to other thought processes, other mindsets, other ways of doing things. Because just because it's the way we've been thinking, this is the way we've been doing things all this time, does not mean that is the right way. And if it's not rendering the results that you desire, there are only a couple of reasons why. One, is not meant for you. Two, the way that you're going about it is wrong. So you have to peel back the layers, get to the root of it, and discover what's the issue. And so we are talking about our internal battles, our internal conflicts that keep us from being great, as we like to say. You know, we always like to say other people won't let us be great, or we, and playfully we'll say, oh my, when my phone is not working, or if my internet is not working, or my apps aren't working properly, and I'm preparing to get on live or something like that. I might say, oh, my technology, my computer, my cell phone won't let me be great. Oh, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube won't let me be great today, right? Okay, so that's playful. But when you start seeing patterns, repetitious patterns happening, you have to trace the root. And at some point in time, we can no longer blame the people who planted the seeds or the situations that planted the seeds. Because what that is a victimized or victim mindset. You can't live a victorious life with a victim mindset. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that it's not hard. I just said that when I was in the process of trying to change my mindset or learning a new way of thinking, a new approach, it took a long time. I mean, a long time. I started going to therapy in 2007. I believe it was. As a matter of fact, it wasn't 2007. Forgive me. It was 2009. I believe it was 2009 is when I went to therapy sessions. Now listen to this. As an educator, I was already an educator. I started teaching in 2002. I started working on my master's degree in 2005 and I graduated in 2007. By that time, I had already been in several different schools and in several different leadership positions. And I was responsible for other minds, other mindsets. When you are an educator, you're not just teaching one particular core thing. You're teaching a gamut of things. You may be an English teacher, but you're teaching responsibility, you're teaching structure, you're teaching a whole bunch of things. And if you're not careful, you're sharing your biases while you're doing it, right? So I share that for a reason, because I just said I did not start therapy until 2009. I had already established patterns in my life, patterns of not being able to identify true friends, patterns of dealing with the wrong men. Maybe not, and I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with these men or anything wrong with these friends. What I'm saying is I was choosing wrong for what I needed in my life at that time. I was looking for the people outside of me to deal with my internal conflicts. I was looking for them to fill voids on the inside of me. No one can fill anything on the inside of you. What I had to learn was that in order for me to obtain the things, the people, the places, the experiences that I desired, I first had to deal with me. Because what we do is we project how we feel and how we think. We project it onto our situations and onto other people. So as an educator, I thought, and I still think I did a really good job, but just imagine what it would have been like had I been presenting my whole self. As a mother, my son experienced my growth. We grew up together. That's why we're so close now. We grew up together, and I had to come to a point where I was transparent about I'm growing up with you. I had to come to a place where I wasn't trying to present myself as as like I had it all together, because I didn't. And he was astute enough to know that I didn't. And the one thing about when you are raising your children to have a voice is that they use it. And they use it in the most inappropriate times, right? And then that's where we have that balance. We have to learn that balance. But side note, your children, if they can't feel safe enough to express themselves in the purest form in the home, how do you expect them to not leave the home and not have internal balances about who they are and what their voice is and what their stance is on certain things? They can't go out in the world and try it out. It's too late. They should be able to get loose with the voice sometimes, they should be able to, because it's our responsibility to bring them back in and say, okay, now, what you told me was the truth, honey. You ain't had to say it like that, because you just ate me all the way up. You just got my life all. Did my life just getting all together? Did I just get got together by a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old? What the world? What in the world? And be humble enough to know that you just got together by a 2, 3, 4-year-old, and not have pride. And that's when you really know I need to go and reflect and sit with myself. But because we don't want to face our internal conflicts, we develop these habits. We develop these I said the word earlier. We develop these The Lord says strongholds because that's what they are, right? They're our safe places. We begin to overdrink. We begin to oversmoke. I'm saying over for a reason because I'm not going to say what you should or should not be doing. It's not my job to convict anybody. I overdrank. I smoked cigarettes and weed like it was like my mind was going crazy, like because it was like my mind was going bad, right? We begin to over sexualize ourselves. We begin to over vocalize. When you see someone that they have to be the loudest person in the room, they're probably struggling with being heard. Okay, here are some other things that I wrote down. Internal conflict translates into fear, anger, disgust, confusion, and possibly loneliness. Oftentimes, remember I said we project? Well, we project and we'll say stuff like, I'm angry at you, when really you're angry with yourself. Or sometimes we don't even know how to vocalize or verbalize our emotions, so we act them out. So now you have the what resembles like a bipolar type of situation. You do have some that it's a chemical imbalance, but then you have some that it's a learned behavior. And we just have to be real about it because we label everything as a mental disorder and then we medicate it with a prescription. But we're not giving people the tools on how to overcome. Medication creates another issue. So now we've gone from having an internal conflict, internal battle, and a mental instability and emotional imbalance to now we have a physical issue because I have been sustaining myself and maintaining myself on this medication. And what happens when something happens and I can't obtain this medication and I've been on it for 10 years, but I have not done any work to develop any type of strength in that area. I haven't done any type of work that gives me any weaponry, any tools in my tool belt to help me overcome my situation. We have been giving excuses. We have been enabling situations and just saying stuff like that's just how they are or that's just how I am. You love me or leave me. Deal with it. When the truth of the matter is, when you say stuff like that and then you look around and there's no one there, then the next thing you know somebody's on Facebook or someone's on their whatever their platform is or in their journal or wherever saying don't nobody have my back, ain't nobody there for me, I'm tired of being there for everybody else and ain't nobody there for me. Well, were you there for them because you were expecting something in return, or were you there for them because that's your nature? So now we start to develop character flaws, false identities, all because we're not dealing with the root of it, the internal conflict. I'm not talking about who created it. We can sit there all day long, but if we sit there all day long, we're not progressing. There's no movement forward. Every time someone brings a concern or an issue or shines a light on something that needs to be dealt with you, you say, well, I had to deal with such and such and such growing up. You don't know what it was like for me. First of all, you don't know what I know. You don't know what it was like for me. Let's stop deflecting and let's deal with the issue. I'm sharing from a standpoint of it's time for us to be victorious. And we can go and try to manifest all the things that we want to manifest. You can go and create all the potions. You can go and create all the mantras or mantras. You can declare and decree all day long. You can create these rituals. You can pray at 9 o'clock in the morning, noontime, and 6 in the evening. I don't know. I'm not attacking anybody's processes, right? But what I'm saying is you can do these things. You can take your medication. You can have the best regimen. You can work out day and night, right? You can meal prep every week. You can do all the things. But if you're not dealing with the core of the issue, when you're unable to do all the things, it's going to smack you dead in the face again. It's called running. It's called running. I remember when I moved from Virginia to DC, when I took a leap, no job, any of that. I did have a place to stay because I went to stay with family. And I had no friends. I had no social life. And I was in my early 20s with a child. I felt so unwanted, unseen, unattractive. I just alone. I had nobody but my child and my great aunt who I was taking care of. And I remember how different the culture was in DC versus Virginia. And I remember the first time I attempted to make a friend, which I eventually did become friends with her. And I would be walking, in the store to my car, whatever. And, they say in the South that we have this Southern hospitality. I don't know if Virginia is far enough in the South for that. I'm not sure. I think some of us do, some of us don't, right? But I would make eye contact if I made eye contact with a person, I would speak. I'd be like, hey, how you doing? And they would mean mug me like nobody's business. And when I tell you that thing, it was like somebody like drove a stake through my heart. It hurt me up because I'm like, what's the problem? And so I remember this one day, there was this young lady who I'll never forget her. Her name was Lonnie. Who had a son the same age as my son. And I noticed her walking from my neighborhood, like, because the daycare that our children went to was right at the top of the hill. It was at a church right at the top of the hill from where we lived. And so I would notice her walking. My lazy behind was driving. It was right up the top of the hill, y'all. And I was driving to pick him up. I didn't have a job at this particular time, so I was getting assistance, to pay for the daycare so that I could look for work. And so I would see her frequently, but this particular day, it was pouring down raining. And I asked her, did she want to ride? And she told me, nah, I'm good, because she didn't know me. And remember, this is DC, this is the city. Instead of me being like, okay, she didn't want to ride. Okay, that's her perspective. That's her prerogative, whatever. I internalized it, but I wouldn't let it be known, right? But I sat on that thing, and that thing replayed in my mind over and over again. Anytime anyone would reject me, whether it was the slightest thing or a large thing, no matter what, I would replay it over and over and over again in my mind. Why? Why didn't she want to ride with me? Why doesn't she want to talk to me? Why doesn't he want to date me? Why doesn't he answer my calls? Why, right? And I'm driving myself insane. So we had come across each other again, and another pouring down rainy day occurred, and I asked her again, and this particular time she said yes. So she got in the car and we began to talk, and she told me, she said, I ain't know you, I thought you was crazy, I thought you were weird, I'm trying to figure out why this lady keep trying to offer me a ride. But we found out that we had so many things in common. And so I share that to say that, our environments and our experiences shape us. They shape our responses. They can hinder us from experiences. Like, if we don't get a handle on our internal conflicts, the things that we're struggling with, that will bubble over, it will manifest outwardly. I don't care how we try to dress it up, but it can hinder us from progression. And if we are sitting on the whys and not coming up with solutions, just like in a business, just like you would with external conflict, just like if you're trying to establish something, if you're building something, if you're just looking at the problems and continuously talking about the problems, and not going to the drawing board, not going to the think tank and trying to come up with some solutions, then you're wasting time. You're expending energy for no reason, because you're not going to do anything about it, and you're not going to grow. That's why you have grown people who still have very childlike mannerisms. Grown people with very childlike mannerisms, because it hasn't been dealt with. It has not been dealt with. We have to take the conflict that's been presented to us externally, that creates the internal conflict, and learn from it. And we have to accept the fact that we don't have the tools that's necessary, and it's okay to seek help. It's okay for us to say, I don't know how to do this. I need help. And that is another reason why your friend circle is so important. If you have a friend circle that all y'all do together is turn up, that's it. You walking out with your booty cheeks hanging out all the time. I don't care if it's 20 degrees outside or 100 degrees outside. I know people be like, that's their prerogative, they grown, they whatever. I'm saying, what I'm saying is, no behavior. How do I want to say this? No behavior comes from out the blue. Every behavior or everything that happens starts somewhere. So somewhere in a person's mind, they decided that this is how I want to present myself. And I'm not saying that, hey, listen, that's you, right? But please don't negate the fact that everything has a reason. Everything has a reason. Some of us, all of us have a moral compass. Some of us have a smaller moral compass. Some of us have a broader moral compass. Some people we make decisions based off of our moral compasses, right? So for some people, you're just not going to do certain things no matter what your situation is, right? Okay, let me go back to being a single mom. Being a single mom, having been evicted, having lost on my home, having stayed in a motel, hotel, whatever, having my car repoed on the job in front of everybody. It wasn't even a secret. Everybody knew because I had to go hustle and get the stuff up out the car. Having wrecked a vehicle because I was drinking and driving because I was so distraught with my life and myself, right? And I can say that I've never considered suicide, but my actions say something different. I never thought it, but my actions, it manifests. And so, but for some reason I never considered selling my body to pay my bills. Although I gave it away, I never considered selling it. There was a limit somewhere, but someone else, they may consider that. That's their only route. That's all they can see. That's all they can do. I want to present to you that it's the moral compass that allows us to go that way. And it could be because of what had our experiences when we were younger. It may be because of what we were exposed to growing up, right? I've been violated, molested, and raped. There is a difference. I've been touched unwanted, right? By adults. But I never considered, and I think it's because of my experience with that, in my thought process with that if I got money for it, it made me, it turned me into something. Not understanding that giving it away still turn you into something. Can I just have real conversation? So, and I found out something this week. I shared this with my day ones, my best friends. And I found out something that one of my girlfriends, she asked me how did I feel about it. And my initial response was I feel fine about it because I already had an indication about it. But as I've been sitting on it and processing it, what I'm learning, for one, our decisions affect other people. You don't just make solitary decisions and think that they're not going to affect someone somewhere. But particularly if you're a parent, the decisions that we make, knowingly or unknowingly, like whether we're keeping them hidden, whether they're behind closed doors, whether they're in the dark or not, or whether you're doing it right in front of your child's face, they will affect your children. That's just the law of the land. If I were to go spiritual, our decisions release spiritual warfare on our generations. What we open up the doors to in our inner circles, in our family, in our bloodline, what we expose our bloodline to exposes our bloodline to spiritual warfare. If I were to go natural with it, what we decide to do, the compromises that we're willing to make in order to have or in order to maintain, exposes our children and our generations in our inner circles to compromise. It changes their thought process, because what it says is this is acceptable. Even though when you're making the decision, you know that it's not acceptable, but you don't see any other way to go about doing this. But what it says to those that are watching, those that are around, those that are benefiting from those decisions, that this is an acceptable route. And no matter how we try to deceive ourselves into thinking that compromise is acceptable, it's not. So we go back to, we have to deal with our internal conflicts. Because as I read, it translates into fear, anger, disgust, confusion, and possibly loneliness. Okay, so before I go, I want to read one more thing. Because for me, my internal conflicts manifested in a battle of weight, like an extreme battle. Many of you all who know me know I've been large and in charge. I've never been like skinny mini or anything, but I've been extreme in this battle because I created a safe haven in food. And so we talk about triggers a lot. And again, I'm not a therapist. I have worked as a mental health support specialist. I have worked as a behavioral health specialist, but I don't have a degree in psychology. That was initially what I wanted to do when I went to school, and then I quickly jumped up out of that because I didn't have the discipline to do the studying. But I definitely have an interest, a heart's desire to understand why people do the things that they do, and then to help them come out of those situations when they're stuck, right? So a lot of my study has been myself. I've studied myself, and I've studied my mama. If I could just be honest, I studied. She was a lot to study, and then I studied myself, and so I know my internal conflicts, right? And so one of the coping mechanisms, that's the word I've been trying to find ever since I said it. One of my coping mechanisms was food, and even still, it's something that I have to stay. That's when you say you put on your full armor. I have to stay aware of it when I'm feeling heavy, when I'm feeling conflicted about something that has happened, to me. I tend to start munching, and I have to get up. Like the great thing about it is, I know this now. So if I go too far with it, then it's a choice. It's definitely a conscious decision, because we have unconscious decisions that we make, unconscious, moves that we make, and we have conscious decisions and conscious moves that we make. So I'm not blameless anymore, because I know these things. We do better when we know better, right? We're not held accountable for the things that we don't know. But you can't be 50 years old still saying that you didn't know that. And it's about you. I'm talking about stuff about you. You don't know how you operate. You don't know how you function by now. That means you have not been taking any time with yourself. You've been too busy out here turning up in the streets trying to avoid yourself. Every time you turn around, you got to have people all around you because you're trying to avoid yourself. And that's not okay. And then you got the nerve to have, I'm not talking about nobody in particular, you got a nerve to be reproducing, and you hiding and running from yourself, and then expect your children to want to deal with you. At some point in time, that thing gonna come full circle, and you're gonna need those children that you treated like they were a possession, and like that they owed you something for bringing them into the world. They didn't have no say so in this situation. You had all the say so. How do you make your children obligated to your happiness? I don't know. I guess that's something that I need to be, because what are we doing though? Like, for real. And then sending them off to the educators, expecting them to be able to do something with them when you know good and goddamn well you can't do nothing with them at home. Don't stop sitting up in people's face lying, telling them something they don't act like that at home. You a lie. Stop. Cut it out. Cut it out. You're not even dealing with yourself. That's why your children ain't being dealt with. I'm just saying of the things I've seen. I ain't coming down on no particular person. I ain't called nobody name. Y'all know I ain't lying on here, especially my educators. the stuff that we have been ill-equipped to deal with, but held accountable and responsible for. Ain't nobody teaching teachers how to be parents at school. Like when they go to school, they're not learning how to be parents to the children that they ain't even give birth to. That's not part of the curriculum. That's not part of the education. But yet, it's still something that educators are held accountable for. Why your children why they not performing well in class? Well, because I can't even get them to sit down. I can't even get them to listen. Well, what have you done? Why aren't you? Have you contacted home? Yeah, multiple times. Yes, I have. Matter of fact, I've contacted home so much that the parents have blocked the number, so I can't even get nobody on the phone. You called me about mine. I'm at the school. Even when I was in the classroom, I'm leaving my school. I'm coming up there. Let me see what's going on. Or if I couldn't get up there right then and there, I'm making an arrangement so that I'm there. Let me see what's going on, because this is my responsibility. And then I've got to figure out what to do about it. Now I got to go get counseling, me, you, and all the whole crew, because we need to get to the root of this, because what we're not going to do is be out here terrorizing people. So, again, we're talking about learning from our conflicts. And today, we're talking about internal conflicts. You can't begin to deal with anybody else's conflicts. You can't begin to deal with external conflicts until you have dealt with your internal conflicts. Who are you? Who are you, darling? Who are you? You can only know who you are when you have sat and dealt with the things that are rooted in you, that are keeping you from being the person that you know deep down on the inside you want to be. None of us want to be unhappy. None of us want to always be arguing with somebody to prove a point. I believe in my whole heart that what we all want is peace. Whether it's for the world or whether it's just peace within myself and in my home. Don't come around here with the foolishness. Love you. We all want that, even though we say that we don't. We have been lying to ourselves and then trying to lie to others, and that is deception. And so again, I thank you all for joining me on Perspectives. You know, I dealt with internal conflicts with this, especially today. And really this week. I think I shared this a couple weeks ago, right? I have somewhat of a vision for what this is and what this looks like, but God has a totally different vision for what this is and what this looks like. And the only thing that I'm clear on is that I have to keep going. I have to keep doing it. No matter if I have a guest or if I don't have a guest, no matter if nobody is trying to be a guest, no matter if I reach out to you and ask you, to come on and, provide you with a space for you to grow, a platform for you to show what you have going on, and you're denying me because I'm not a big name or whatever the case may be. No matter what the conflicts are in this, one thing I'm certain about is that now that I've gotten started, I can't stop now. I have overcome the internal conflicts that even kept me from getting started. But everything happens in due season. And it cannot come to full fruition until you have matured enough to go forth in the thing that you are, in the purpose that you're purposed for. And so I just want to say thank you all for joining me on today. We have been talking about learning from our conflict, specifically our internal conflict. Y'all see how I'm playing around with my stuff, right? And so I hope that this has been fulfilling to you. I hope that this has helped broaden your perspective, if not just a little bit, about the internal conflicts that you may be dealing with. I want to encourage you that nothing lasts always. Trouble doesn't last always, right? And I want to encourage you that even though the work may be difficult, challenging, and hard, make sure that you have a circle of confidants around you, people that you can trust, people that are mature, people that are not going to, once you have identified that you want to make a change, then people that are going to help cultivate that change and not just allow you to sit in your mess, just not allow you to accept the incompleteness of you. Once you have identified that I am incomplete and I want to be made whole, you need to engulf yourself in the things that's going to help to make you whole. The people, the places, and the things that's going to help you get to where you're trying to go. So don't be afraid to sit with yourself. Do not despise small beginnings. Do not internalize when you don't have anyone around you, because in certain seasons of your life, isolation is required. I know that isolation is not necessarily a good thing, but in certain seasons of your life, isolation is required, because the only way that you can deal with the internal conflicts, the voices that you may be hearing, the self-doubt and all of that, is to not have other people feeding you their truth. You have to identify you first. So embrace the cocoon season. All right. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm signing off, y'all. This has been Perspectives with Demira. I love y'all. I want us to grow. I want us to prosper. I want us to have peace in everything that we do. So, peace and blessings.